So tonight we're not going to have a regular scheduled program, but we're going to have a simple discussion. I have a patient, vaccine injured patient. We've told her story before. Morgan was vaccine injured and went and lost a season of soccer through my care, and through the help and rigorous studies of her mother, was able to recover significantly from that vaccine injury. But still weighs heavily on her health and her life. So we'll be adjusting her this night here in a few minutes, but we're also going to go and I'm going to have a family night. So that's why we don't have a regular scheduled program. So I just want that out front right now, but we're going to have a discussion. I'm going to give you some information. So I might have to leave suddenly and end the discussion in the middle of, some hot topic that I may get on. But so what I want to do is I'm going to discuss, because I'll be speaking Friday, actually, speaking at a legislative event, Mid-Cumberland Children and Youth, MCCY. I sit on the board, volunteer on that board because children's lives matter to me, and I believe that there are ways to save and change the lives of our children that isn't being utilized to its full potential. And there's not a lot of people that seem to want to stand up and fight hardcore about it. Recently learned about Tennessee Attorney General kind of spearheading, and I'm very thankful for this. But in the last month or so, the Tennessean came out. Tennessee's Attorney General is spearheading coalition of 41 states that is demanding documents that several prescription painkiller manufacturers and distributors as it investigates the company's practices regarding the opioids. He says, we will use all resources available to identify and hold accountable those parties responsible. There is too much at stake not to attack this problem from multiple sides. And I want to talk about those multiple sides a little bit tonight and talk about and discuss what you guys feel as the audience or my friends who tune in frequently. I want to know what you. So Sherry, I see you online. Kay, I appreciate everybody being online already. But what are your opinions? What do you feel? What would you like to say to your legislators here in Tennessee in regards to the opioid epidemic? I especially want to hear from some of our the veterans and the spouses and maybe even children of the veterans, because today I simply asked every veteran that came through my office, some paying cash and some getting VA, Tri-West to pay for their care. They only get 24 visits per year, so under chiropractic care, but they pay cash in between, but they can get in every single one of them. Said they get multiple drug prescriptions per month, either shipped to their door or handed to them. Every single month they can get narcotics, pain medications, addictive opioids, deadly opioids. They can get a deadly opioid anytime they want. But yet they jump through hoops to get chiropractic care. For which one of my patients, this gentleman actually told his physician, like, I am functioning better, I'm out of pain, I can play sports with my children, I can do things that I can't do on narcotics. I'm a zombie, I'm knocked out, mentally not there for my family if I'm on those drugs, but he can get those drugs for the rest of his life. Because currently, the way our healthcare system, insurance companies work, and especially the ones that are dictated by the darn lobbying efforts of our pharmaceutical industry, they won't pay for chiropractic care or physical therapy, acupuncture for the rest of the person's life to maintain their functional level of health and their ability to do things with their family members. You know what they do? You can get all the drugs you want, and they'll continue to pay for that, even though the research says that it makes people worse over time. So why aren't we saying, if something can maintain your pain just as effectively, that gets the rest of your life. We'll pay for that for the rest of your life. You choose. Do you want chiropractic or opioids? Which one? Give people the freedom. But sadly, our government right now and our circumstances that dictate patient decisions are, what's my insurance company going to pay? I told this to another patient here recently. I said to her, hey, if you're going to rely on your health to be maintained by your your disease insurance company, let's call it like it is, if you're going to rely on that insurance company to determine what treatment regimens you take and what routes you take in terms of your health and your life, you know what I want you to do? If they discontinue chiropractic care or they don't pay for chiropractic care and you decide not to come in here, I want to make sure that you get a really good life insurance policy. So, because that's what you're going to need, and you're going to need it a lot sooner if you allow your disease insurance company to dictate what care you get. So Kay already tunes in. I appreciate this. Veteran wife, and he has multiple myeloma and Agent Orange and is being treated with morphine. God, Kay, that breaks my heart to hear. Your husband deserves much better. He deserves alternatives. You know, what's amazing to me is I could bring it up possibly here really quickly because this will be part of the presentation I'll be presenting now that Kay says that. I want to give you guys a comparison specifically with this. So we have here on the screen in front of me medical marijuana use in oncology. This is a review of the systematic review of the available medical literature on this. And what's sad is her husband can get morphine, and whether he needs it or not, he can get morphine, but they will not give him a safer alternative, or they won't even offer it. The insurance companies won't pay for it, and that's sad. He should at least be given the opportunity to have a safer alternative like cannabis. Whether you want to call it medical marijuana, it's cannabis. It's a plant species that is phenomenal for our health. Now, it can be used in the for the wrong purposes of getting high, and you know what? I'm not a person, and it's not my place to judge. You know, have I gotten drunk in my past? Yes, I have. Have I taken it? I'll be 100% upfront with you all. I've done this. You know, I feel that, you know what, you guys, I'm an open book. I don't want to deceive. Am I a perfect person? Absolutely not. I am one of the sometimes I feel like I'm one of the worst sinners in the world. You know what? I grew up with a mother dealing with fibromyalgia, chronic depression, bipolar disorder, all kinds of things. You know what? She got all the drugs she could possibly take. I watched a grandfather and grandmother literally as I'd sit there with breakfast, hanging out with my grandparents. They used to pay me $5 to spend the night. I used to be like, I'll go over, hang out with my grandparents, get paid $5. But I'd wake up every morning, watch cartoons, you know, the good old cartoons, Mickey Mouse and, you know, Popeye, you know, with my grandfather sitting there on his lap in the recliner. But I'd always have to watch him get out his little tray of medications, take his pill bottles out, and they were filling up these little trays on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, the entire week with morning, noon, and night. You know, I watched him do that. And then as I grew up, I watched, you know, my mother being given tons of prescription medications and her basically doing the same thing. That, you know, anytime it seemed like no reason to me. I couldn't tell whether she's in pain or not. I just knew that she wasn't necessarily there all the time for us. You know, but she'd go into the medicine cabinet, she'd pull out this, and we had this cabinet that literally I could pull out the drawers and I could walk up on them. I'd use them as stairs, as little as I was, and I'd crawl up on the counter and I could open up the medicine cabinet. We'd have like 3 or 4 shelves completely full of drugs, completely full. And thank God as a child I never thought they were candy. I don't necessarily remember my parents being very strict on don't ever touch those things. But that was my perception, was those are always safe, those are always good for us, those are drugs. You know what? They're given by our doctors who are good people, and the doctors in our community, I believe and I knew, were good people. And a lot of doctors are, so you're seeing a little bit different side of me. You know, I rant and rave about the harms that medical physicians and the medical system and the Big Pharma especially, that's really who I'm after. I can't stand the lies and corruption and evil that is the pharmaceutical industry, so I'll really hammer that. But, you know, our medical physicians, they may have good hearts, good spirits, they want to help people, and that's what they say in this. 75% of medical physicians polled out of thousands literally said they would be all for medical marijuana, because the biggest determining factor in that is that they want to end suffering. They don't want to see suffering. So that's great, and that's a good heart, and that's what people need. But back to this, I literally would watch my mom getting all these pills from her medical physicians. You know what? So in essence, at that time, growing up, it kept being drilled into my brain. And this is part of our opioid problem in America. You know, I harped a little on parents that are popping their pills and taking their drugs, meanwhile not eating right, not exercising, not setting good examples for their children in terms of the health of their body and taking care of themselves. And I pray for people to seek that within themselves, the determination to do the right things to get well and get healthy, or seek out help and assistance from somebody like myself or a good physician that's going to help you identify the underlying causes. But you know what? My perception were drugs were safe. Prescription drugs, they were safe, I thought. You know what? So I grew up and I went through high school and I broke my foot. I got drugs for that. And you know what? The thing was, my mom got a whole lot more drugs. And at one point in my life, I sat there with a friend and we got in the medicine cabinet, took out a few antidepressants, take out a few oxycodone, narcotics, and we took them. We took them for the fun of it. There was no necessity. They were easy access. But in my perception, I felt, you know what, this is safer than probably smoking marijuana, than doing something else. You know what, it's prescription meds. It's FDA approved. It's got to be safe. I'll be all right. You know what, looking back now and knowing what I know, I thank God every single day. At least I probably should thank Him every single day. Watching and observing how many people in America right now, tens of thousands, more than 500,000 people since the approval of the opioids, narcotics, Oxycontin, Purdue Pharma, lying about their safety and their addictive properties to our medical physicians. So I'm literally sitting there and I'm like, it's got to be safe. I'm just thanking God right now that I am not another individual whose life was ruined by this addiction epidemic. So that's me right here. I've done bad things. I'm not a great person. I'm not, my slate is not clean. But I know who forgives me for the things that I've done. So talking about it, so let me go through this really quickly here, and I'll have to read 2013, studies by these two individuals completed a poll of 1,446 physicians. Again, 76% approved the use of medical marijuana. Most physicians cited their responsibility as caregivers to alleviate suffering. Thank you, Jesus, for those medical physicians that wish to alleviate suffering. And that's what we need to do. But we need to see that one of the primary and greatest amounts of suffering that we're seeing in America right now is coming from what they call iatrogenic, is medically induced. It's opioids. This opioid epidemic is one of the greatest causes of suffering and death in American history. Preventable suffering and death. So we have, again, when comparing all trials, they found that cannabinoids were significantly more effective than antiemetics, so that's vomiting and those things, digested, than all of these other prescription drugs. But all of those other prescription drugs are oftentimes paid for during cancer treatment by your insurance company, by our medical system. Will get reimbursement for that, but not something more effective. See, the reality in one of the biggest problems we have right now in America is the fact that we have our insurance companies will literally determine whether a patient can have access to something because a patient doesn't have the money to be able to pay several $100s maybe in the amount of hemp oil to be able to afford for their entire regimen of chemotherapy. They can't afford that, so what do? They have to rely on what the insurance is going to pay. So they're literally, I had to hang up on my wife, everybody. I understand that that's probably a really bad choice I just made there. I kind of am second guessing that. And the pain I will probably suffer from that. Luckily I have hemp oil and I'll take that because she's going to whip me pretty darn, oh boy, I hope so. No, I'm just kidding. Come on, people. We got to have a little laugh. All right. Dirty mind. It's okay. It's the marital bed. It's okay. All right. Hey, our numbers just jumped there. But, Kay, do you feel me on that? I hope people understand it. When you think about it, so something more effective than all these other drugs, we won't pay for it. Because the FDA doesn't care about what's best for people. They only approve what can be determined. So one of the clauses in our FDA approval process is the fact that you have to understand what's the number one, what's the one single active ingredient, what's that one molecule that causes all the good stuff. Oh, you can't figure that out because it's a synergistic activity by the everything that's in the cannabis plant? Well, since you can't figure it out, we're not going to give you FDA approval yet. It's not about what's best. It's about what can be patented. That needs to change, and that's something I'll be pushing for. But when you look at it, 18 studies crossover was allowed, and 38 to 90% of patients reported preferring cannabinoid therapy, cannabis therapy, during chemotherapy than prescription narcotics. They would rather not take a deadly, devastating, harmful, highly addictive drug. They'd rather take cannabis. And the reality is you got to heat it. You got to heat THC. It's got to be active THC to be able to cause a high. So what if we just don't heat it? Still having the beneficial effects. Cannabinoids have been studied for their analgesic potential cancer-related pain, specifically neuropathic pain, which many narcotics will not touch nerve-related pain. But yet they're given out like candy to sciatica pain patients, to neuropathy patients. They can get those, but not a safer, more effective alternative. Cannabinoids, call your representatives and tell them that it's about what's effective. It's not about all these junk reasons why the FDA won't approve something like a plant-based medicine. Cannabinoid 1 receptors in the central nervous system are found to high concentration in the areas. Our brain literally has these for a purpose. Areas of the brain that modulate nociceptive, that's pain-related processing, in similar distribution to opioid receptors, But we can produce our own opioids without becoming addicted. We can produce those cannabinoids. We can produce things like that. Feel-good hormones by exercising, doing right things. And these are going to do the same. Cannabinoids may also act as mast cell receptors, inhibiting the release of inflammatory substances. So a pain reliever and anti-inflammatory in one. Wow! But you got to have two drugs to do that from the drug companies. So they get to make twice as much money because one drug does one thing, thus you need two drugs, rather than taking one substance, plant-based medicine, that would do two things. Darn, actually does a lot more than two things. It would actually help you fight cancer. Enhancing the release of analgesic opioids to combat inflammation. Cannabinoids may be effective in treating neuropathic pain by inhibiting the acute pain response and C fibers and the wind-up phenomenon that contributes to the development of hyperalgesia or hyper-related sensitivity to pain. Guess what? Even better than narcotics. Again, but not FDA approved. They reported 10 milligrams of THC produced analgesic effects over 7 hours observation period comparable to 60 milligrams of codeine, a narcotic, and 20 milligrams of THC induced similar effects to 120 milligrams of codeine. That is phenomenal. Half the amount. And yet still not FDA approved, not legal to grow yourself. Let's let the drug companies make it synthetically and sell it to us. That's a great idea. Thanks a lot, politicians. I'm speaking in a I just don't get it. I just don't get it. Why we literally will sit here and tell people they can't grow their own medicine. A plant that God created and should be allowed. And granted, people could grow opioid poppy plants and be able to make their own too. But the reality is this. They had that access. It wasn't a devastating effect like we have now. That was prescription for addiction. The opioid epidemic was driven by illegal practices by Big Pharma. The results showed that a pain reliever. Johnson then examined the effect of cannabis extract preparations containing. I just pray, I pray that our politicians, our legislators, our lawmakers will stop doing business with criminals. I mean, think about it. Purdue Pharma is an established criminal. The drug manufacturers of opioids and others, I mean, just look at this. Let's look at one. Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Where'd it go? I had a study over here, an article about Paxil, the manufacturers of Paxil, lying about the safety of that drug for our children, and it was causing suicide in our children. And they lied about it, and they withheld the evidence, and then they manipulated the evidence to lie to the doctors again, lie to physicians and regulatory bodies. So they're criminals, but yet our politicians can accept money from them. I don't quite understand it. Money's powerful, but I just don't want to do business with criminals. That's it. I don't. I would never, even if I became a politician. Dale for president next year, right? The Wild Doc for president. Tennessee representative, put me on the ballot. I don't care. Make sure that door is unlocked, Anthony. They can come on in. So the results show that pain relief was superior in the THC and CBD group, with twice as many patients experiencing a 30% reduction in pain when compared to the placebo. The THC alone group performed similar to placebo. What that right there shows us is actually being able to use cannabis with lower THC levels, higher CBD levels, and getting a better result or good result to where we don't need to worry about people getting extremely high off of this. And the reality is, again, how many people have died from overdoses from cannabis or marijuana? So, how are you both doing? Good to see you girls. Give me 1 second to kind of wrap this up. I'm sure I need to get home. The wife's already called me and I hung up on her. She's probably watching me right now, and so like sitting there shaking her head like, Did she comment? No. I was going to say, woo. Oops, here in Australia, love your talk. Appreciate it, Sherry. Appreciate you. Give people other options. They legalize, even mandate black box meds and block natural medicines, which closes options. I make my own canna-paste. Maxine says, awesome. Sherry, they also need to be honest about true side effects and dangers. Informed consent doesn't exist if the doctors aren't honest, informed, and provide the real inserts before prescribing. Gotta go, can't wait to the meeting. Hey, hey Lou. Valerie, right, don't heat it. Maxie, heal the world with cannabis. Cannabinoids are mother's milk. Do you vaccinate your pets? Wild Doc, do I vaccinate my pets? Don't really want to admit this one way or the other. Reality is I don't have any pets. Do I? I have family members. I don't know. My dog's religiously against vaccines. I'm religiously against them. If I'm religiously against them, I have stray dogs that run around my house. They're not mine. Cannabis paste has healed me 10 times over. Awesome. Okay. Love the information. Valerie, right. More money in Big Pharma's products. Yep. Catherine in Cleveland. I think it is time to charge all those legislators who are in bed with pharma and pharma executives with racketeering. I would completely agree. You're literally, what's funny to me is I can sit in a car with somebody and I have no clue that they have an illegal substance. And I can be arrested as well, even though I don't know. But yet, our medical physicians can improperly prescribe opioid narcotics to people, and they don't go to jail. If I assist somebody during a crime, I don't care what it is. Even if I literally hide them from police, or I don't know, something completely harmless, if I assist in any way, shape, or form with any type of crime, I'm held liable. I could go to jail for that. I'm a criminal. How is our legislators doing business with criminals, passing or preventing legislation one way or the other that allows for a continuing epidemic of opioid overdoses and deaths? So they're assisting known criminals and continuing on with their criminal activity, which is marketing improperly to doctors and continuing the lies. You know what I feel and what I'm going to kind of push for at this legislative event, it's pretty simple. I'm going to sit here, and what I'm going to say to them, I had a couple things that I marked down, things that I feel that we can do. We should end all marketing of opioids by Big Pharma. Done. If they want to market it at all, if they even attempt to market opioids to medical physicians or the public, that's a crime. Anyone doing that will go to jail, okay? And again, what I'm going to give them, and this will be an analogy I will give to our representatives, is simple. If I were to create a substance or market a substance that I knew that I had evidence, which is, this analogy is exactly what the pharmaceutical companies have done multiple times. This isn't a first. This isn't an odd situation where they did it one time. They've done this over and over and over and over again. So if I marketed it, lied to medical physicians or lied to people that were selling it, and then got them to sell it, and then they sold my product, and I had evidence that I completely understood that people would die, completely understood that they'd become addicted, completely understood that they would cause massive suffering and harm and death to both children and adults, where would I be as an individual once the public and the government or the police officers knew about it? Where would I be? Where would I be? Please answer me this. Where would I be? I would be in jail. But we treat criminals like Big Pharma, completely different. But we did see somebody in racketeering and pushing narcotics. They're possibly looking at jail time. Great. We need to do a lot more of that. We need a zero tolerance policy. You lie about the safety of your drug during approval processes anytime during their scientific studies. If you do that as a drug company, you lose all rights to that drug. You lose all financial dollar. Every bit of income you generated from that drug, you lose it all, and then some. That's a punishment. Unlike the current standard is, while drug companies can make well over close to $2 billion a year on this opioid epidemic and issues from all their drugs, so all of these medications out there on the market right now, making billions of dollars per year, and yet our government and our legislators and our law enforcement, Justice Department allows for them to pay $10 million now, $12 million there, $24 million there. Oh, they paid $630 million here recently. Less than practically a third of their profits in a year. And they've had it on since 1990s. Oh, that's great. You really just taught them a lesson, right? If my son stole something, let's say, again, I use this analogy. I know it doesn't really work out that well because the reality is my son wouldn't steal a box of candy bars, but let's say he did. And I looked at him and said, hey, you stole that box of candy bars. Let me have 2 of them. That'll teach you. I'm a bad parent. That's what I am if I would do that. I don't understand. We need to start treating drug companies like children. So cannabis is really easy to make yourself. Can of paste. Vote for the Wild Doc. Go on YouTube and watch Making a Killing. That's a good documentary, Making a Killing. All right, everybody, I got to jump off here. You guys enjoy your evening. I appreciate y'all. Bye-bye now. Share the truth. Don't just like it. That's the only way we save lives. Hey, everybody, I'm the Wild Doc, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure that you hop on over to thewilddoc.com. Subscribe there for our newsletter and email campaign. Join in the conversation on Facebook, and let's transform the world by unleashing the power of natural healing.